The dual employment of Dick Armey at both FreedomWorks and DLA Piper had led our show and others to question whether companies employing Dick Armey's law and lobbying firm also effectively were buying the services of what is purportedly a grassroots organization, FreedomWorks. For example, when life insurance interests paid for representation from DLA Piper, did that influence the decision by FreedomWorks to direct its membership to oppose life insurance regulations, or in fact to oppose health reform, some provisions of which are opposed by the life insurance industry? When Mr. Armey resigned from the firm today, the chairman of DLA Piper released his own statement saying, quote, "We are sorry to see Dick Armey leave, but," he said, quote, "we appreciate his taking the initiative to clear up confusion surrounding FreedomWorks." Now, our reporting is not the first time that confusion has been reported about whether or not FreedomWorks is actually a grassroots front, an ostensible grassroots front for corporate lobbying and PR. Why this time has it resulted in this dramatic resignation? We honestly do not yet know. But there are other signs that reporting on the increasingly extremist rhetoric that's being embraced by healthcare reform opponents is causing some consternation among those who are being linked to the protesters by the press. Another report that we did on anti-health reform protesters last night on this show has provoked a double-barreled response from the public relations firm of Shirley and Bannister. Now, Shirley and Bannister currently lists as clients on its website some very big names in the conservative movement, groups like the NRA, the conservative news outlet Human Events, conservative direct mail guru Richard Viguerie. Now, we reported last night that Shirley and Bannister also represented a website called grassfire.org. Grassfire.org funds another website called resistnet.com, and resistnet.com is a hub for online organizing for anti-health reform protests. You can find there, among other things, a video entitled "Obama Equals Hitler." ResistNet.com bills itself as the online community for patriotic citizens who are opposing the Obama-led socialist agenda. And it appears to be one of the more radical online organizing hubs for these town hall protests. They have hosted some of the most extreme rhetoric and imagery that we have yet seen in this era of very extreme anti-Obama rhetoric and imagery. Well, today, Shirley and Bannister wrote to us to let us know that while they used to represent grassfire.org, they no longer represent them. Now, I apologize for saying that they were still currently involved in representing Grassfire. They are not. Shirley and Bannister did, however, represent the group in 2004. Back in 2004, Grassfire was busy producing TV ads attacking Democratic presidential candidate John Kerry ahead of the 2004 election, which would, of course, be sort of normal and fine, except for the fact that Grassfire told the IRS at the time that they weren't doing any work to influence the elections of 2004. Now again, Shirley and Bannister no longer represent Grassfire, but when they did, that's what Grassfire was up to. Now, currently, Shirley and Bannister represents an organization called the Bradley Foundation. The Bradley Foundation is a major funder of, wait for it, FreedomWorks. In 2008, the Bradley Foundation provided a $25,000 grant to the FreedomWorks Foundation. The same year, the Bradley Foundation also gave a $25,000 grant to the organization Americans for Prosperity. We called the Bradley Foundation today to ask if those groups have also received funding this year in 2009. They told us that FreedomWorks has indeed received $75 grand so far this year, and they have another application pending to receive more. Americans for Prosperity has not received any money from the Bradley Foundation this year, but they too have a grant application pending. These two organizations, FreedomWorks and Americans for Prosperity, are both visibly, observably responsible for organizing these protests at the healthcare reform events. And they're quite proud of it. Here's the president and vice president of FreedomWorks bragging about their efforts here on MSNBC.
That the right thing to do is to be aggressive, get to the microphone, express your opinion.
But right now, you guys are killing these. You're going to every town meeting in the world, blowing it apart.
Yep, just like we.
How many people you got working? How many people are on your payroll? DreamWorks, FreedomWorks, whatever it's called.
18.
18 employees. And how do you organize these meetings? These where people do like the Acorn type meetings where they show up at
mostly through the internet.
So that was FreedomWorks. Americans for Prosperity, who we have hosted on this show, they're the group that is currently driving buses around the country to campaign against health care reform. Anytime you see the big bloody red handprint and hands off my health care, that's Americans for Prosperity. What can Americans learn about health care reform from the speakers organized for the big bloody handprint, hands off my health care bus tour?
If this new Obamacare program comes to fruition, when you reach 65 and every 5 years thereafter, you're going to have a counseling session with some federal airhead. Part of this process is called end-of-life counseling, and part of the end-of-life counseling can be an end-of-life order. Adolf Hitler issued 6 million end-of-life orders. He called his program the Final Solution. I kind of wonder what we're going to call ours.
Americans for Prosperity, whose speaker you just saw there, and FreedomWorks are being funded in part by the Bradley Foundation. The Bradley Foundation is currently represented by Shirley Ann Bannister. Who else does Shirley Ann Bannister represent? Well, there's the group Citizens United, which is currently pushing the Obama has an enemies list story on its website. There's conservative activist Richard Viguerie, whose website currently features the image of President Obama as the Joker from Batman next to the title, Why So Socialist? When Shirley Ann Bannister came after us today, they not only requested a correction for us getting the timing wrong on their representation of grassfire.org, which I'm happy to provide, more than happy. They also immediately threatened to sue us, and then they went on a right-wing PR jihad today against us, providing the emails they sent us to right-wing websites to write stories about their demanded correction and their threatened lawsuit before we were even on the air again to get a chance to offer the correction that they had demanded. This is the way they operate. In 2004, when Shirley Ann Bannister did represent grassfire.org, and grassfire.org was producing the anti-John Kerry TV ads, even while it was telling the IRS that it wasn't spending any money to influence the election, the good government watchdog group Public Citizen decided to look into who was representing this group, Grassfire. When Public Citizen discovered that it was Shirley Ann Bannister, and they inquired about Grassfire with a Shirley Ann Bannister employee, Craig Shirley, the Shirley and Shirley Ann Bannister, fired off this email to that employee and to Public Citizen. Quote, Public Citizen is an ultra-leftist, anti-conservative, anti-Bush organization. If they bother you one more time, please advise me soonest, and I will have the lawyers alert the FBI and the Virginia Attorney General's office to investigate Public Citizen for any and all laws they may have broken, and to prosecute the name of a specific Public Citizen employee and Public Citizen to the fullest extent of the law. What did they do to deserve that? Public Citizen was asking for publicly available information. And Shirley Ann Bannister threatened to sic the FBI and the state attorney general on them. For their part, Public Citizen disputes the characterization of them as an ultra-leftist, anti-conservative group, telling us today that they are an independent public interest watchdog. I understand that this is the way that Beltway PR works. Specifically, this is the way that Beltway right-wing PR works. It is threats and intimidation and ginning up an angry mob if you need to in order to get your way. We deal with the facts here. We correct the record when we need to. But I will not, and we will not be intimidated out of covering the news. Enjoy yourself if you want to keep trying.
Special interest groups are trying to block progress on healthcare reform, derailing the debate with myths and scare tactics, desperately trying to stop you from discovering that reform won't hurt Medicare. It will actually strengthen it by eliminating billions of dollars in waste and lowering drug prices. Tell Congress not to let myths get in the way of fixing what's broken with healthcare. Learn the facts at healthactionnow.org.